told myself I wouldn't keep making these types of videos, but it's just so hard because it crosses my mind so much, even at this age. I just wish that, like, after 30 we didn't think about this kind of crap anymore, and it really gets to me, you know, that I have to still keep thinking about this shit, but it's pretty hard to ignore. Talked about it like beating a dead horse, but at the same time it's like I've also said that if by some way I could live to like 80 years old, I'd still be trying, because I can't handle the idea of, you know, going my whole life and never getting to do this, you know, never getting to even experience this. And I'm like, it's just so like heavy of a kind of feeling of failure and depression and frustration to carry around with you, to, you know, to be able to function properly like all the time, you know. So I don't need a drink because of this anymore. I drink every now and then now, like I don't a whole lot, just every once in a while, but I don't necessarily because of this, because I'm more worried about the health stuff than this now, because that's more of a priority. But every now and then when I have some sort of spare time, when I'm not thinking about other stuff, this just comes back into my mind and starts to do the damage again, and just flare up this whole problem. And, you know, you'd think after enough time, after enough years, this would, you know, go away. I would learn to live with this, but I don't think this is one of these things that I can learn to live with. I mean, I don't understand how other guys manage to. I know there's a whole lot of guys out there who, well, I'd say the bulk of guys, even if they haven't, you know, even if they've managed to do it, I'd still say the bulk of guys settle. Honestly, I truly believe that, because all I need to do is look at so many cases I see online. It backs up what I say, you know. I think about it, and the more I think about it, the more I notice it, sort of thing. Pretty much every guy that I know is in the same position. You know, I've known guys who've gotten into long-term relationships and things like that now, and some of them have, oh, there you go, you want the water? Yeah. Some of these guys have had kids and stuff, and you look at their partners and you think, fuck man, how much Viagra are you taking just so you can do that shit, you know? I'm not trying to be insulting. Somebody might say, oh, you know, you're not that great yourself, or you shouldn't be judgmental. But I'm just honestly saying, I'm not trying to diss anybody. I know we can't help how we look. And I don't mean to drag other people down, but I'm just trying to say that these guys I know are settling like hard, you know. They don't even get people on their level. They don't get an average person, you know. It's like so many guys I know, and I'm predominantly pretty much just talking about white guys, because I generally only know white guys, yeah, like all of them, they either go for a white girl who's like fat, and I don't mean a bit chubby, but I mean like grossly overweight or morbidly obese, or they go with somebody who's outside of their race that they have pretty much nothing in common with, like at all. There's just no real connection there. And I know that these guys aren't doing this because there's like, you know, because they've met somebody who like they really have a lot in common with, and they think, oh, you know, some people might say, oh, they might really like each other, they might just have clicked and all this. No, it's too common. It's too common to be that kind of coincidence. I understand that might happen with some people, but it's just a common observation that I've made, is that a lot of white guys who aren't conventionally attractive, they just go with, if they can't find somebody who's their own race, they always go for somebody from another race who they literally have next to nothing in common at all with. You know, and I can tell that these aren't the people that these guys want to get with, because like I've had friends that I know what they were, like the types that they like, but they could never get the types that they like, so they just go for literally anything. Like so many guys have such low standards, or they drop their standards so low because they literally get tired of just having nothing. You know, they get tired of having nothing and they just go for whatever they can get. And I mean, people can call it racist all they want, but it's just a known fact that for a lot of white guys, it is a lot easier for them to get people of other races and nationalities, because It's just how something is. It's like, it's a known fact that guys go over to Asia to get Asian brides and things like that, or they have those mail order brides, or people who don't speak too good of English and things. It's just a known fact. You know, people can complain about that being racist to point that out, but it's an honest cultural observation that everybody is pretty much aware of. It's a thing, because it's a lot harder to get a white partner. It just is, you know. So for a lot of white guys, that's why they have to go with somebody else. I've known so many friends and other people do that. Personally, I couldn't do that because I don't believe in that sort of thing, and that's not what I'm naturally attracted to. That's just not what I'm into, and I've been shamed for that, mostly by pissweak liberals and leftists. Always are the ones who are trying to tell me that that's why I have trouble meeting somebody of my own kind, because I'm not willing to go with somebody outside of my own, which is absolutely ridiculous, because no white guy ever would not go with a white partner that he would otherwise be interested in simply because she only dates whites. He would think of that as a great thing, you know. I mean, so the idea that I can't find people my own race because I don't want to go with other ones is just retarded. Learned, you know, that personality and behavior and everything is completely irrelevant. You know, it's got nothing to do with it, because I'm tired of people trying to pretend that it is. You know, it's always the loser people who are always trying to pretend that personality and all this stuff, you know, like the ones on Reddit, it's a known thing, all those pricks on there, you know, the ones always saying, oh, it's because you're not smiling in your photos, it's because you're not dressed well enough. They'll blame your clothes, they'll make fun of the way, you know, like they're the most prejudiced peers that there are, those kids on Reddit. They'll make fun of your haircut, they'll talk about your clothes not being the right colour, they'll tell you about you not smiling, they'll make up everything excuse under the sun. You know, it's even pathetic to see that they still use these excuses on there, like, oh, you look fine, but you could just have a better haircut, or you could just have that style doesn't really suit you, or your photos are not done professionally enough, oh, your photos are done overdone, or you don't want to have a shirtless gym selfie, or you don't want to have photos with dogs, or you've got to have photos with dogs, or you've got to have photos with friends, or you don't want to have photos with friends because you know, can't tell which one is you, or, you know, you don't want to have selfies, but you want to have, they'll literally, whatever you do, they'll tell you need to do the opposite. And then when you get frustrated and you express your frustrations about it, then they'll tell you that it's because of your personality and the fact that you're frustrated. Literally, what they'll do is they'll pick on a few things, make a bunch of bullshit excuses and things that they think would work, and when you call them out on it and you try and say that it's a load of crap, then they'll tell you you've got a bad attitude and say that that's why it is. But they'll never admit its face. But the bottom line is, like, I've had this argument with so many people, like I had this big argument with my brother, like I would say a couple of weeks, but more like about a week ago about this, and he's like, oh, reason why you never get a partner is because you call them bitches. And I'm like, do these people always like look at the end result? Like, are they incapable of actually coming to the terms of thinking that maybe the only reason you're bitter, maybe the only reason you call them names like this is because they've treated you like garbage your whole life? You know, I don't know any of these freaking guys in the black pill circles that I've spoken to or anything who started out this way. You know, it's the same as people who end up really promiscuous. A lot of these people have been burned before. You know, a lot of these people were a bit different. Not saying all of them, but a lot of people don't start out this way. No one starts out bitter. And they, like, people like this, why it's so frustrating is that they try to make out that the only reason that you don't have success is because you've got a big old chip on your shoulder, because you're sexist, because you're against, because you've got some kind of attitude problem, or because you use derogatory terms towards the opposite sex, or things like that. But in reality, do these people, like, are they incapable of stopping and thinking, well, hey, what was this guy's reception and interactions like with people before he was like that? You know, if they're going to say that the only reason that you don't have success with relationships and finding somebody is because you've got an attitude, because you call them names, because you're doing this, and because you do all these things that literally none of the ones you've met would even know, because they can't look at you, and despite what the idiots on Reddit think, they can't just look at you and tell what you've said in the past. If that was true, then all the girls wouldn't be freaking going with all these scumbag guys, because they would automatically take a look at them and know that they were a bad guy. But they constantly fall for these bad type of guys over and over and over again, because even when they see the bad behavior, they turn the other way and can ignore it and keep going back to them simply because the dude looks them good. You know, it's like, even if that bad behavior is pointing at them right in the face, even if they've experienced it, they literally like blatantly ignore it simply because if the guy looks good enough, they'll look the other way. It's the same way that if a freaking rich guy, it's the same way that a rich guy will ignore problems with cars because he likes what they are. It's like, if you had a whole lot of money, you buy a freaking Ferrari or a Lamborghini, you have the idea that, well, hey, this thing mightn't be very reliable. There's a freaking decent chance that this thing somewhere out on the highway is going to start catching on, is going to end up burning or catching on fire and, you know, costing you a whole lot of money. Or if you end up like needing spare parts, they're going to cost you like tens of thousands just for like regular parts to get replaced and things like that. But they don't think about that. They don't care because they just want something that looks cool. It's the same with girls in relationships. It's like all of these bad traits that would, you know, in a rational sense put people off are overlooked, because the thing is that the reason they overlook it is because they already want the guy. So it's like, hey, how many things am I going to overlook because I already want this? They justify that, you know, because they already want them. That's why they look over it. But for a guy who is not considered attractive, then they're not going to already want you. So there's nothing to really drive them for that. But the thing is that, like, it just pisses me off when people blame behavior and things like that, and try and say that the reason that guys have this lack of success is because of their behavior and personality, when in reality, what would, like, if you were going to say that the only reason a guy is not having success with the opposite sex is because he's a sexist and he has bad outlook on people, and he's an asshole, or he's a bad personality, whatever, that is implying that if the only reason a guy has no success is because he's sexist and he has bad behavior towards them or whatever, and he's bitter and he's like got hate and stuff towards them, then that kind of implies that before he ended up acting like that, he would have had things differently, like he would have had success before that. This is where it just stumps my mind, where when these people try and talk about personality and things being the reason for why you can get no success. Because it's like, these guys obviously didn't used to be bitter, right? Nobody starts out that way. Do these people seriously think that collectively these guys are not capable of actually stopping and thinking, hey, maybe if I stop being bitter and stop doing this and saying these things, that I would have things differently? And then their counter argument would probably be something along the lines of, oh, well, these guys lack any self-awareness. But the thing is, like I said, nobody starts out like this. The reason why these guys get bitter and have this negative outlook on the opposite sex is because they've gone through this for years. It's not created overnight. People don't just randomly start doing that and then wonder why they have no success. They go through years of it. You know, it's not from a couple of experiences. It's not because you got rejected a few times. It's because you've literally been conditioned into feeling this. You don't develop hate like that just overnight. It's the same with a lot of people who become racist. You know, there are some people who are naturally like that, but then there are other people who've had bad experiences with certain types of people in certain cultures for a long time, and then they've become to think a certain way. People don't start off like that. People start off fairly neutral in this sort of regard. Like, a lot of guys, especially these guys, these black pill circles and things like that, are really quite optimistic, as I started out to be. Like, if they hated them so much, if they were actually that bitter and messed up and really didn't like them, why would they spend half of their lives complaining online and trying to figure out ways of becoming good enough? Why would we be literally willing to lie down and pay tens of thousands of dollars of surgeries and clothing and whatever the fuck else to try to be good enough if it was just because we were bitter? Right? If we hated them that much, why would we want them? You know, like, it's just ridiculous to me. I can't understand this concept where people just seem to think that, oh, all you need to do is just not be bitter, not call them bitches and shit. It's like, for fuck's sake, you know, like, it's almost like these people believe that this is just how we started off, you know, and it was always like that, like we were born yesterday or some bullshit. It's like, do these people not think that for years beforehand we had like no good experience? We had just like piss poor experience, and that led up to that? Because I can sure as hell say that in my case. You know, I can say when I was a kid, I was like 5 years old, and when I was like 5 years old, or probably even younger, you know, I had this really optimistic outlook on females. In fact, I was quite the opposite with sexism, because I probably didn't like men because my dad, when I was younger, never cared for me really. You know, all I saw him as just a guy who was using my mum. I had no other men in my life. I mean, like, around me, I had no brothers or I had no brothers or male teachers or anything like that. Like, I had my mum, my sister, my grandma, my teachers at school were female. All the people that my mum hung out with were female. So I got and they were the nicer ones. They were always nice to me, and my dad was a prick. So basically, I didn't really have I didn't have necessarily a bad outlook on men, but I had a positive outlook on females at the time, because I was young and oblivious. And because I knew I was straight by the time I even drew breath and was self-aware, you know, I always thought that they were like nice people. I was always like really attracted to them ever since I was like really young. And I thought that when I was older, because I liked them that much, that they would like me. And I never realized how much this was about looks. You know, this is so ridiculous. I never started off bitter. Hell, I didn't end up like this until I was probably, I'd say, at the start of my 20s. It's mostly out of frustration. Frustration, it would piss me off because, you know, out of envy, really. The same way I hate rich people. You see other guys with something that you feel like that you can't have, and you hate them for it. And then you hate the fact that these people will go with guys that you see as lesser men. You know, in a natural situation, you see a lesser man and you would just take him out, you know. And but because we live in a society that is well, controlled by authoritarian dictators, where they come after you with weapons endlessly if you were to do something like that, you don't have the freedom to act like a natural human would and fight another man for your chance. So basically, you just have to sit there in silence and hope that you get chosen eventually, you know. But that's the thing, that's where it sort of started off with, and then it evolved from that into becoming bitterness and hatred and everything, because of being treated by, like, one thing is to be, you know, never having your turn, basically, never getting to experience that, and then it's another thing to be hated by the people that you want, you know. Like, so when it feels like the entire pretty much opposite gender, like, hates you, it can really mess you up. I mean, like, say, being alone for a long time is one thing, but then it's like, it's kind of like being kicked when you're already down, you know. If you've been beaten down, you know, that's humiliating and shameful enough as it is, and it kind of destroys your character for a while. But if somebody was to spit on you, mock you, or kick you while you're on the ground, that's just going to make you feel a hell of a lot worse. You know, that's like adding insult to injury, really. So it's the same thing with this. It's like being alone and not being able to have any success for a long time is one thing, but then when you're sitting in a car minding your own business, you know, you've gone out, you thought you were dressed up well, look nice or something, you know, like, I mean, I've no self-awareness, you know. I didn't even realize I was ugly until I was 25, and I went on Tinder, and then I went online and I started complaining about it, and then I get all these freaking bitches and randomly in my Facebook inbox and stuff calling me incel and shit, mocking me when I hadn't even said a first word to them. I think, man, I must look so bad because they're going out of their way to literally call me ugly. Like, they're actually messaging me, like, just randomly and calling me that name and stuff like that, and I'm like, fucking hell, man. But it took me, like, I didn't even know about that until I went on the dating apps, because and I tried, and I made like profiles on like websites and things, because up until then I just thought there was just something wrong with me. I couldn't tell what it was, and then I found out it was just my looks. But you know, it was like the thing what made me so bitter about it was, you know, when I like sitting in a car or something like that, or walking around town, and I'd get like laughed at, or I'd get scowled at, or I'd get given these filthy looks, and I just, you know, it really messed me up, like really badly. And it's just like having that frustration, you know. I can take it from people. I can take a lot of crap as long as I can get some positivity with it. You know, it's like even the greatest bands and movies and whatever are still going to have some people who really hate them. So it's kind of like, I don't mind being hated if I'm liked by a certain group, you know, or have some success with certain people. But it's like, if you're literally hated by and rejected by literally everybody, then that will literally tell you, well, hey, you don't just not appeal to the mainstream, you don't appeal to fucking anyone, you know. So it's like, I go to like even alternative like type people won't even have a freaking bar, you know. Like, and people could say, oh, you know, it's because you're so bitter and you're a bad person. Bullshit. No guy ever in history was ever too bad morally or as a person to put people off, right? Dictators, people who chopped off men's heads in the back in the day, people who tortured people, the worst prison inmates, you know, people are in there for destroying whole families and getting married in jail. All of these, if it was my personality, that it was just me being bitter or some vague thing like that, why is it that asshole who tried to run me over with his girlfriend in the car, that girl didn't stop him and say, hey, what are you doing, man? You shouldn't do that to another guy. She just sat there in silence. You know, why is it that these guys who are out there beating up other men, robbing them, you know, covered in tattoos, covered in gang things like that and shit, why the hell aren't these guys and girls leaving them? Yet they can still find partners. That asshole who was in the Japanese camps who was torturing people for experimentation, he had wives. Even the guy Mengele from freaking the SS who was like killing kids and stuff, he went off to get married afterwards. You know, after the war, he fled to like, I can't remember where it was. I'm not sure if it was France or somewhere. But he got like married after that. And you're trying to tell me that girls can take one look at you and say, oh, you're misogynistic, or you're some bullshit. You know, like they can read your entire backstory. You're telling me that all these guys out there who are literally heads of sectors of like gangs and shit, and got like those ones in the war and things like that who are killing prisoners and things, you're trying to tell me that those personalities were okay, but my bitterness and resentment from being mocked, laughed at, scowled at and rejected for years, which is completely justified, me being bitter about this, and the only reason I'm like that is because I've faced years of this. You're trying to tell me that makes me, that I'm too bad of a person, that my personality and my character are too bad, and yet guys who are in jail for literally destroying families, for literally going out and beating up freaking helpless people, robbing people, home invasion, like exploitation, freaking so many different things. You're telling me that all those guys who actually managed to do that and still have success, somehow I'm worse than them? Yeah, of course. I'm tired of people giving me these freaking bullshit excuses. Just freaking say it how it is. How half of the freaking black pill community just wants people to stop lying about things. Just be honest, you know. One thing is the fact that like females just standards are so far through the roof that the majority of guys will never be able to get there. But another is the fact that they're just lying about it. And then you've got the groveling, sniveling beta leftists, you know, the type of ones who are in their 20s and they're like out of shape, they look like freaking crap, they've got no freaking style, they're piss weak leftist freaking types are the ones who are defending this kind of behavior and calling out guys who call out these females. Whenever a guy online talks about these females with high standards and whatever, these little sniveling freaking leftists are the ones who try and shut you up because they want to basically bury their own kind in a sad attempt to gain some sort of favor from the opposite sex. You know, they're like sniveling, groveling freaking animals, like male feminist types who are trying to shit on the enemy of, you know, shit on any guy who calls out bad female behavior because they want to win favor with them. Basically, they're spineless, they have no integrity or character, and they're a disgrace to their own kind, but they'll do this because they want to try and gain favor. Those are the only kind of people who can call people out on that. But the thing is that pisses me off is that people like that and people, just the mainstream media, needs to stop sweeping this under the rug and stop frickin' pretending that it's just, oh, men who complain about frickin' female standards and about how bad females are just bitter misogynists. It's like, no, we're all just normal guys who couldn't quite meet the fin bar of looks. Tell me, why is it that I can go on Tinder, I can literally replace my own face with the freaking face of a male model and just have the exact same bio, or even make it a little bit worse, and then say my height is 4 or 5 inches taller, and all of a sudden I have no problem. All of a sudden I can get matches and messages. Why is that? Right, you're going to tell me it isn't about looks, yet I make a profile with someone dressed similar, somebody in same boring mirror selfies and room car selfies, and literally the exact same type of profile, and it gets matches, it gets success. If it was all about personality, then why are females collectively only swiping between 2 and 5% of men? Tell me that. Why is it that even when they're interviewed, they say that they only find maybe upwards of even 5%, if being generous, of men attractive enough? You know, all you need to do is look at the kind of freaking evidence that's happening. No guy who is conventionally attractive, regardless of whether he has a good or bad personality, is struggling. Yet every guy, pretty much, who isn't conventionally attractive, who's just a regular guy in today's age, can't get matches for... I mean, the evidence just speaks for itself. I'm just frustrated with the fucking lying and the fact that people can't frickin' admit it. The only reason they don't is because nobody will ever hold females' behavior accountable. Nobody will ever frickin', like, the media won't acknowledge exactly what they're freaking like. It's bullshit. Because whenever men complain about anything in life, whether it's depression, finding it hard to cope with struggles and everything, loss, anything, psychological issues, money issues, oh, just grow a spine, harden up, just pull yourself up, all of this freaking shit. So it just goes to show, it makes absolute sense that whenever guys complain about female standards or not being, you know, good enough for their ridiculous freaking requirements, people will do the same thing that they do in every other situation and say, oh, you know, you're just being a bitch, you just, you know, just better yourself. You know, it's like females could all of a sudden say, oh, we only want to date 6'4" millionaires with a freaking, you know, concrete jaw or some shit, you know. And then men would collectively be screaming about it and being like, you know, calling it out as bullshit. And yet the media would still be like, oh, men are just failing to live up to, you know, it's like, it doesn't matter. It's so crazy. It's like, we can literally, as a guy, say, just don't be fat. Just don't be fat. And then all they say, all of the medias and everybody's been screaming at me and saying, oh, how can you say that? How can you have standards? You know, if a man's like I've seen guys absolutely thrown under the bus because they've tried to say that they have a preference in type. Hell, I get called racist because I say that I want to date somebody who's also white. You know, how fucked is that? You know, like if you're an Indian guy who wants to date an Indian, oh yeah, that's fine because it's your culture. It's a cultural thing. If you're black or Asian, you want to date a black or Asian partner. Oh yeah, well, you know, their culture, they have, that makes sense, it's fine. If you're a white person who says you want to date a white person, oh, it's racist, it's wrong, it's fuck off. But that's it's the sort of shit you get hit with. It's the same with if you say that if you are even in shape, or if you're thin and you're an average white guy, to say you don't want to date somebody who's obese, people just like hate you for it. And why the fuck should you? Why is it that they're never held for anything? They're never told to improve on anything. They want to be accepted as literally being overweight, unemployed, have multiple kids, STDs, the personality of a... And yet they still think, oh, we should be able to still have it all. We shouldn't ever have requirements. And yet, whenever they say anything required from men, you know, it doesn't matter how much they say, like what a guy has to have. Nobody ever calls them out on it. And when we call them out on it, we get blamed for not meeting the requirement. Well, that's bull. You know, like I've seen these freaking interviews and stuff now where the most basic looking females who are like completely painted up with makeup, more tattoos than a freaking gang member, you know, like absolutely terrible attitude, and, you know, like a body count like higher than their age, you know, and yet they're thinking that they're 10s, and yet they're like saying 80% of men are like 2s and 3s. Like, come on. It's like, if you take the makeup away from your average girl and you put like 50 of your regular average girls and 50 of your regular average guys in a room, you know, the females would basically, based on their thing, they would say that they would be marginally higher and better looking than the men, but that's bullshit. They would be on an even playing ground. But for some fucked up reason, probably because of social media, they seem to think that all men are like way down here and that all of them are way up through the roof. Well, that's an absolute bullshit, because your average human female looks no better than your average human male. It's just, it's retarded, you know. So now I get like some in 4 out of 10 thinking that she's like needs to date some 6'4" freaking GQ looking mother. You know, that's so retarded, you know. I'm tired of not being good enough. You know, even the ugliest girl, even the fattest girl with the most viral freaking toxic personality will still find in men no problem. No problem at all. Hell, I can't even get a response from a 4 out of 10. I don't really like numbering people, but, you know, someone who's even below average. You know, like the last person that I talked to was probably like a 4 out of 10, had some facial sort of disfiguration and was like really shy and awkward and everything. And even she thought she was still too good to talk to me after a while, because she ended up being friends with this blonde bimbo who probably dripped poison in her ear and told her that she was too good for me or something like that. You know, too good to talk to me. This was a friend of mine. This girl was for quite a long time. But yeah, these days it's like hell. I can't even remember the last time I had a conversation with a girl, really. You know, I mean, I know I did when I was 28 with that girl that I got to like, who liked me for a bit. But, you know, I'd say in the last 3 years, I had that one conversation with that girl at that bar, which to me was like a huge deal, because it had never once happened to me before. That was such an anomaly. I was just so shocked. But, you know, like since I've been back here in this wretched piss stain of a town, I haven't had any conversation with anybody. I mean, hell, I'm not really surprised though, because I am being my age now, you know, being too old to really date. I can't really blame them. And it sucks, because I just wish I was like 17 again or 21 again, so I was young enough to find a partner. But it's just like, you know, I just think men should have it. Like, as much as I'd love to live forever or love to live for hundreds of years, I'm just thinking, if we haven't had kids, what the fuck are we even still doing it alive at like 30? I don't want to be like saying, oh, you know, I don't want to get sicker or anything like that, but I mean, what the hell is the point? You know, if we haven't had kids as a man by 30, because what is the point of being around? Because it's like, the reason to keep living after 30 as a man generally would be to raise your children, right? You stick around to raise your kids, because that's what you do. You help guide them and raise them and help them to develop into healthy adults that are capable of looking after themselves and, you know, teaching them and stuff like that. So you've got a reason to stick around for another couple of decades. But if you're like 30 and you haven't got any kids, what's the point? It's just tormenting, you know, like just still having these feelings. It's still not being good enough. It's like, fuck, you know, all these other cunts out there wanting to frickin' have a career and get all these houses and frickin' all this money and all this and all these accomplishments. I don't give a fuck about that. What do I give a shit about some man-made frickin' materialistic horse? I just want a frickin' guy knowing that I know what it's like to f somebody who's attractive. I mean, that's it. If you've never been with somebody that you've ever found physically attractive, like that's not real sex. Most guys, as far as I'm aware, as far as I'm concerned, never even had real sex. If you're like in 30 or 20 and 5 or whatever, and you've only ever been with obese people, then you're still a virgin in my eyes, you know? If you've never been with your own kind and somebody who you actually find physically attractive, that's not real sex. That's a cheap imitation. You might as well be filming a picture on TV. You might as well be banging a frickin' silicone doll or something. That's not real. It's only real if you've had the peak experience, something that you've actually found physically attractive, because otherwise it's a cheap imitation of the real thing, you know? And most guys haven't had the real thing in my eyes, you know? Practically every guy I know is settled, like hard. It's just as bullshit. You shouldn't have to settle for somebody far below you. I don't know what the hell I am. People keep freaking saying that I'm like really bad. Like, I don't even know. I know that I've always been below average, but in some ways I think I'm a bit above it in some ways, but I'm also below it in others. I think I'm a kind of a weird mix, because I don't really quite fit into either of the three categories, which is like, you know, sub 5, normal, and Chad, like good looking. I don't think I fit into any of those three, because I think I'm kind of like a mix of three, like somewhere in some weird category that doesn't quite fit in either of them. But either way, I'm not good enough for somebody. Hell, it's so fucked up when you think that you would cash in the last of your days just to fuck somebody, just to know what it's like, you know? It pisses me off, you know, like that so many worthless men out there have experienced this just through some bullshit organization like porn. I mean, when you look at porn, as disgusting as it is, how many guys in that are freaking so damn terrible looking. I mean, you look at, like, I don't really know a whole lot of names. I mean, everybody knows they're on GME. It's a bit of a laugh, but I mean, like, in general though, like, I mean, out of the regular people, it's like some of these guys literally look like ogres. And I mean, there's that one British guy as well that's been on YouTube, and then there's that bald mother who everybody makes memes about. None of these guys look decent, and I find it hard to believe that if they weren't getting paid, any of these females would let them anywhere near them. And it completely goes against what even makes sense in society, because a regular guy can't even get a conversation in a bar. You know, you can't get a match on a dating app. You know, like, so I hate porn for many reasons, because it corrupts men and it weakens society and it makes people into like degenerates. It promotes degeneracy and breaks down morals, and you know, it's like an attack on the family unit, really, among other things, and weakens men. But at the same time, I hate it because it's like it allows really ugly men to cheat the system, because none of these mothers would be able to do it otherwise, you know. They wouldn't be able to frickin' do this. And as much as I'd like to cheat the system myself, I don't like it when other people do. You know, I don't like it that these guys get to. It's fucked up. And I think that's one of the other reasons why it's so toxic, is because it promotes like so many fake things that contradict real life, because in real life that just simply doesn't happen unless a guy's like got a lot of money. But yeah, anyway, I'm like 41 minutes in. From what I can tell, people only watch like 5 minutes of my videos and leave, which is understandable because like who the hell wants to sit there listening to some depressed guy ranting. But 41 minutes and it's taken me this long to get to the point that I originally meant to say for this video, instead of ranting like a psycho for too long. Basically, I'm just so depressed about being not good enough. I'm so depressed about it. Like, I shouldn't even be talking about this at this age. It's like, even if I look like, you know, some really like good looking model like at like 30 something, it wouldn't matter because I'm literally just too old. Like, even really good looking guys at 30 something are too old for that, because like who the hell would want a guy that old? But you know, it's like, the thing is that sure, I mean, I can sometimes dupe, while I don't have facial hair, I can sometimes dupe people into thinking that I'm under 30. Especially, I still get asked for ID every once in a while, but then again, old people are really poor sighted, I think, who do that. But the thing is like, I shouldn't even be still talking about this. I shouldn't be still wanting to do this and feeling like, oh, why am I not good enough? Because I'm literally like probably 8 years too old for this shit. But it'll frustrate me until I'm gone, you know, because I've never managed to have a chance to do this, you know. So it's just been eating away at me. Hey, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's just, I just hate it. I just wish I could, like, I just wish I could go back to like being younger and have a whole lot of surgery, or being younger and like just put my brain into a new body that's like, say, 21 years old, 6'2", because apparently that's necessary these days, and have a face like, I don't know, one of those GQ mothers. That's basically it. Something along those lines. You know, those who have a face like a bicycle seat and narrow eyes like a snake, and, you know, perfect like hairline and like that, those kind of guys. Yeah, and then I'd be able to. But then again, I would completely be really angry if I was like that and had success anyway, because I would realize that the only reason I got success was because I was like that. You know, it's so depressing. But what I really hate about it is just the fact that I just can't. It's like feeling like you're a fucking animal stuck in a cage, and outside the cage there's a whole heap of food on the table, and you're starving and you're clawing your way at the cage, and you can just do nothing but hopelessly stare on because you can't do anything. It's like the other day I was in this bar, right? I forced myself to go out to a concert, and I always told myself, how are you going to complain about not having any friends or not having any social interactions if you're literally too scared to go out because of your anxiety, or you're freaking worried that you're going to get into a fight, or you don't want to be around people, you don't want to force yourself and make yourself nervous? Because I hadn't been out in society for a while, I hadn't been out around a lot of people aside from walking around town, you know, supermarket and all that bullshit, you know, and I was a bit nervous about it, and I said, hey, I can't complain about this, about never having a shot if I never even go out. So I forced myself to go out to this thing. It was this tribute band. They had a few tribute bands, with the Soundgarden one was my favorite. They did a pretty decent job, not quite on Chris Cornell's level, but pretty decent. And I had a pretty good night. But I saw this girl there, like, in long, straight, black hair, like goth as hell, and I was just like, fuck, so bloody attractive. Like, literally nobody else in the room, like, even like to me, just was even there. Like, just one person just completely stood out, and I was like, God, if only I was like 3-4 inches taller, a few years younger, you know, like 25 maybe, and just had like a handsome face, because then I would think, hey man, I'm actually worth something. I have leverage to try and go with somebody, you know, because your looks is really your leverage, right? You know that you have worth. If you're tall and good looking and stuff, you've got like a power thing over somebody, because it's like if you were to talk to somebody who's like a 6 and you're like tall and attractive, you know that you've got, you know, you're a bit more in demand than they are. But if you're like just not very tall and you're not good looking, you've got no real value to bring to the table. So what the hell would this person want anything to do with you, sort of thing, you know, because you don't have any inherent value. So I was just thinking, if only I was younger, a bit better looking, and had, you know, like a good face. Because in my heart, I felt like you know, this could be like somebody who I could really quite get along with, because usually, like, you never know until you talk to people, but when you see like how certain people dress, or even like the band t-shirts that they some of them wear and things, you can tell that there's like a certain type of person who's into certain things. Like I find with like the alternative, like the goth ones and stuff like that, is that it's not just, you know, an image thing, but a lot of them are into like certain movie types, certain music, certain philosophies on life, or ways of thinking, you know. Like a lot of that can come along with from somebody's image. You can sort of tell, because certain types of people have certain kind of things, or at least I've found that with certain people that I've known. There's quite a similarity that goes towards different stereotypes of people. But anyway, I was like, one day I keep thinking, you know, like, I'm going to meet my perfect ideal partner who's into all the same stuff and shit, but the only problem is that I won't be her perfect ideal partner. So even though she'd be like sort of perfect for what I'd be looking for, I wouldn't meet the cut, so I'd be wasting my time. But anyway, I wanted to talk to this girl, but then I thought, yeah, man, she's just gonna say oof off. And then I see the guy that she's with, and he's like a 42-year-old double amputee. Like, this guy had both the bottoms of his legs freaking taken off because he just had those metal sticks. And yeah, and this guy looked like he was 42. I'm like thinking, I'm too old. And just with somebody who's even older and like handicapped. And I was like, fuck, man, maybe I'm really not as bad off as I think. But at the same time, it's like, I think that happened with somebody else as well that I saw, and I thought, hey, I'm not good enough. But then I see their boyfriend and they look like, you know, they're even worse. But at the same time, it's like, if I was really good enough, I would have been able to get matches. I wouldn't be scowled at. I wouldn't be given all these filthy fucking looks and just avoided. I would have had somebody approach me or talk to me or something. But it hasn't happened, so therefore, you know, I just know, like, it's just, I would say it's over, but it didn't really ever properly begin. I mean, I might have had a chance when I was a teenager. I had that same situation the other day. I can't remember who it was with. Yeah, I saw this girl, like, when I was shopping for food, and I was like, it's quite rare, and yeah, like, pretty insane lower half. And I was just like, I wish I could talk to this person, but I'm just not good enough. It's like walking up to a freaking shop and seeing like a new car in the yard, or a freaking, that new cell phone that I like with the camera out on the front, or some other crap, you know, and you're just like really surprised by it, and you're like, oh man, I really wish I could get this, but I just have no money. So I can just sit there and want it, but I can't do anything. It's the same with people, eh? It's like, I hate that feeling. I've had that feeling a few times in my life where I've just seen somebody and I'll be like, if only I was better looking, I'll go and talk to her, you know. I should stop talking about this now. I'm fucking 32, I should just shut up, you know. I shouldn't even, it's disgusting that I'm even still like wanting people, but I'm still a kid in my mind in a way. Like I'm just some boy who's been abandoned. You know, I haven't really grown up a lot. I don't sit around playing Xbox all the time, but I still play it every once in a while at night time because there's not a lot to do. So I've still got sort of childish tendencies. I haven't really fully grown up. So I guess I can't move on. I feel wrong for it, eh? I feel wrong for still wanting to try and find a partner but at this age. But I can't help it. Just because my body's gotten old doesn't mean like my mind has. Still like the same fucking things. But yeah, I just hate the frustration, eh? I hate the frustration when you just see somebody and you just know, fuck, I just wish I could talk to them, but I just know I'm not good enough. That's why I think the society, like the government should have the government should do two things for fucking men, or among other things, like improving the medical system. What they should do would be, they should take all of the good looking people out of fashion and freaking modeling and all that bullshit, and stop tricking people into believing that if they buy the same clothing that they're going to look like the models, because that's what the fashion industry, how the fashion industry scams people. They need to stop promoting that kind of bullshit as being attractive, so that they just normalize looking average, so that way people won't be constantly looking for the best thing and then get disappointed when they can't find it. They'd be just like happy with normal, you know. And then with the other thing they should do would be to subsidize cosmetic surgery, because it can seriously improve people's lives, because you can't change the human mentality when it comes to, you know, like a genetic sort of, on a genetic level, where people, you know, they're like female nature like females by nature generally shallow as hell physically for what they like in male physical characteristics, but you can't change that, unfortunately. But you could subsidize cosmetic surgery so that men would be able to be, at least if they have certain flaws, they would potentially be able to get them corrected. And also destigmatize this height thing. You've got fucking men out there breaking their legs and setting themselves up for just to be crippled and end up in a wheelchair later on in life and spend the rest of their life screwed because they've broken their legs, you know, leg lengthening surgeries and stuff. The only reason this weird shit's happening, guys torturing themselves with unbelievable pain and debilitating problems because of this, is because all they hear is 6 foot, 6 foot, all this fucking shit, you know, like this height requirement, this constant frickin' beating off about frickin' height that you hear about. Like, even when I was a teenager, girls didn't go on about height all the time, but now it seems like it used to be 6 foot, and now apparently 6 foot's not enough. They want people who look like 6'4", and it's like, you literally don't even see people like that, like, very often. But it seems to be a thing that's increasing, like, all the time, you know. And it's like, that should be taken away. That's like, the media and government and whatever has a lot of influence over people, so they should start promoting like a healthy, like, height kind of thing, you know, like, so this wouldn't be such a big fucking deal. Because no guy should ever go to a freaking degree where they literally think they have to bust their legs. Like, I couldn't imagine going to, I would rather spend my life single than have my legs cut open and freaking attached with metal rods, and that seems like something out of freaking Quake to me, you know, like, just horrid torture. I would not do that. But some guys out there are willing to put themselves through that just as a chance at trying to be good enough. You know, like, if that doesn't frickin' wake the government up to what's happening, then I don't know what the hell will, you know. But that's what needs to happen. The government needs to stop, like, normalize regular height, stop having this fucking romanticism over fucking tall people. What good is being fucking tall anyway? If I was 6'4", why the hell would I want a girl who's 5'5" or 5 foot? Like, I don't want to freaking look down on their head from like 2 feet above. That's freaking crazy. I mean, like, I've seen people like that in public, and I think that if this freaking girl's literally only up to here, not even up to your chest, that's not a partner, that's a pet, you know. Fuck. I wouldn't want, I like somebody personally who's about 5'6". I'm like 5'8", so yeah, probably about 5'5" to 5, maybe like about 3 inches shorter than me. So it's like, you know, so, you know, like, because the man is supposed to be taller. So just, if you're a little bit bigger, then, you know, that looks about right. I don't like this whole thing these days where a man is literally supposed to be shoulders, a neck, and a head above their partner. That's, to me, that's ridiculous. It's like, I don't want to, like, crouch down on the floor to try, like, literally kneel down to try and kiss somebody, or hug them and have them, their head, like, down here. I would like, you know, somebody who's roughly the same height but a little bit shorter, you know. So I don't understand this shit, but it's making a lot of people fucking depressed. I know spoke to a lot of guys online who are so cut about freaking height. I honestly never cared about it until I noticed that, well, being bigger is being stronger, and then, you know, if you're like 6'4", no one's going to really fuck with you unless you're in jail, for the most part. So it's a good deterrent against like violent people. But I never really cared much about being tall until people made a big deal about it. But now it really gets to me. I don't know. But yeah, I'm just tired of not being fucking good enough. You know? Had people online tell me that I should just pay for that, but no way in hell, man. I couldn't do that ever. That's just disgraceful. I just wanted to be good enough, you know, just once in my life. I fucking care about the house, don't care about anything else or whatever. Although I mean, health is important, the most important thing, but I mean, like, all these other things that guys aspire to have in their life, all these successes, I don't even fucking care. I don't want any of that shit. I just want to know what it's like to bang one fucking person, like, that I like the look of. How do you cope with this? Like, this is why I say females just could not handle being an average dude these days, or a ugly dude. You know, they couldn't handle it. You know, if I told all this stuff to a female, she'd just probably laugh at me and call me entitled, because they simply, it's like, even when they're shown what it's like, even when they see men go through this stuff and they hear about it, because it's not their problem, they don't have the brain power to and capability to actually sit down and think, oh man, that would actually be horrible, that would suck. No, they just say anything that doesn't involve them or their own problems, they couldn't care less about, and they couldn't even be bothered sitting out and taking 2 minutes to think, oh man, fuck, if I was in that situation, that'd be horrible. You know, because I think they would take it a lot worse than men, because they crave attention. You know, men don't give a fuck about how many people like their photo on Instagram, you know, of their facial picture or things like that, really. I mean, sure, if you're getting none at all, that sucks. But I mean, they're not putting photos like that on there to get attention the way that girls are. They don't thrive off of attention, you know. And if girls had to literally go, say, months at a time, you know, could you imagine, you know, like all these girls get insane and want to literally change the entire system because, you know, they can't handle the idea when people say that, you know, that if they think that their dating chances are lower because they're overweight, they think, oh, why should I have to change? Why should I have to slim down and not be grossly overweight in order to find a partner? The system should just change. So could you imagine somebody who has that mentality being told not only do they have to be slim, they have to be muscular or in a decent shape, they have to change the way they dress, change the way they have their hair, have a certain income, have a certain height, behave a certain way, and all of these other things, you know, or they won't get anything. Like, they would literally be screaming and tearing their hair out and frickin' complaining and you know, like, they complain about the simplest, like, adversities they have. If they had to live like a freaking dude, I just don't think that they could handle it. I mean, because of the fact that, like, a third of them are on, like, mood-altering pills as it is. Like, look at how easy they have it in life. You know, no girl these days is gonna struggle to find a man at all. You know, like an average dude. They wouldn't struggle to do that. And they have it so easy. Nothing they do has repercussions, really. They're pretty much bailed out of everything. And yet they still find a way to complain to the point about their life being that bad that they have to take some sort of antidepressants. Like a third of them. How f***ed is that? You know, so that's why I say they couldn't handle it as guys, you know. I've seen some of these guys, I've seen some of these girls frickin', you know, complain because they've been like, oh, well, I've been a few months without it. Yeah, but did you choose? Oh, yeah, it was my choice. Yeah, well, try being 16 years, okay? So 16 years now, 16 years of celibacy. Right, I had a chance when I was, let's see, how long ago was that? 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago now. It was 9 years ago last year. Now it's about 10 years. 10 years since the last proper time I had a chance, and I passed it up to go to a bunch of bands because I didn't want to travel all the way to the big city and then miss out on the concert that I actually went up there for because I did that. So yeah, and I never managed to meet up with her again because I could never afford to go back to that city because it was a long way and money was kind of scarce. But yeah, like 10 years, whatever. I was trying for 9 years on, 8 or 9 years on Tinder, like constantly just doing everything I could, manipulating photos, changing my location, putting all these, just constantly. But then I was too stupid. We used to moan about the 80-20 rule, like 20% of men being the only successful ones, and then you realize like later on that it was more like between 2 and 5. Like how fucked up would that have, like how badly would that have ruined guys' minds back in the day if they found out straight away, rather than being 80-20, it was more like 95-5 or 97-3 or something. You know, it's ridiculous to know that they think that we look that fucking terrible. You know, I just don't understand. And if there's a God and he created people, why would he punish us for being sinful or being envious or lustful or whatever, when literally the species makes it so that we don't evenly think of each other as attractive, but yet our opposite gender finds over 95% of us not worthy, meanwhile throwing themselves endlessly at 5% of men who treat them like garbage and just use them. I mean, what the hell kind of design for a species is that? It's pretty fucked up, you know. Why should most of us have to suffer while like tiny minority just get to endlessly bang a fucking huge stream of people? You know, why are they given that kind of ridiculous privilege over everybody else? You know, why do they get to go with like fucking hundreds of people, meanwhile one of us, like regular guys, can try for like 10 plus years and not even get one? You know, it's like, fuck it, man. I just hate it. I just hate not being good enough. I know that most of the people out there who see this shit pretty much just saying black pillars and stuff. The same kind of forever alone type people, you know, will probably be the only people who see this shit. So, you know, all of you already know what it's like. So it's kind of a bit of a waste of time me talking about this like it's a real major personal issue, because, well, it is, but for the kind of people who watch this, you already know what it's like. Hell, you already know, like, all your friends are like that. I know all of my friends have been like that. Pretty much everybody. We're all in the same boat, and it's sinking fast. You know, not an isolated case. I guess I just suffer like everybody else from what I call main character syndrome. I just believe that I'm important enough for my life to matter enough that I would be able to experience this shit in life. You know, we all do. I think to a degree, we're all the main character in our own story. And we all think that, hey, you know, it's all going to work out one day. One day all those like thigh-high wearing secretary looking types, bimbos, goths and freaking whatever else are gonna freaking come our way, and we're gonna have our freaking share, our piece of the pie. You know, we're gonna be able to experience all the variety or whatever, and then be able to pick one and stick with it and be like, right, that's gonna be my partner and we're gonna have a family. And yeah, but it will never happen, you know. Most of us, hell, we'll probably get to 40 and we'll be overweight, sitting on the couch with a heroin needle in our arm or a bag of chips next to us, and just at the end of it, or just have an aneurysm or a stroke, you know. This 40-year-old dude or whatever, just dead on a fucking couch or some shit, forgotten by the world. Our social life's gone down the shitter because social media has absolutely killed everything, and we would have never even experienced it. Man, it's going to be a brutal generation, I can tell you. Half these dudes out there are going to be like not only 40 years old and unmarried, but they'll be 40 years old and they've never even seen a gash in real life. I've got a friend like that, man. He only met his first girlfriend through the internet. He was white, she wasn't. He ain't even been with somebody since, and that was over 10 years ago. He spent probably from 24 up until 34 frickin' celibate. I got another friend who's like 33, never even fucking had a girlfriend before that I'm aware of. I got another friend that I used to hang out with when I was 21. We had a bit of a catch up a long time. We had a bit of a catch up after a long time, a few weeks back. He had a girlfriend back then. He hasn't even had one since. 10 plus years ago. I got another friend. He only ever been with one girl before, and that was over 30. I've got, who else do I know? One guy I know who's with a long-term girlfriend, which was his first, and he lucked out, he got somebody good who was similar to him, but I don't know if there's even attraction there for her. I've got, who else? One guy who settled hard after pretty much no luck for a long time. Another guy who settled hard after not really having much luck. One guy that I've known since he was 23, and I think he's like 27 now, or 29, I can't remember. It must be at least 9 years since I met him. He still talks about his ex before we met. So that whole time that I've known him, he hasn't ever been with anybody. See, this is the reality of the world, in that it's an ugly world that exists outside of the grasp and understanding of the majority of females. To them, this kind of concept doesn't exist. It's not their problem, so they can't understand it. But this is a reality for the majority of guys out there, it seems. I can't speak for every type of guy out there or make generalizations as such, but all I can say is that I can speak for all the guys that I've known, and I can speak for all the ones that I've spoken to online, and the statistics and studies that says that around 33% of men, or something like that, these days, up until when they took the survey, was celibate for at least a year leading up to when they were asked, and that's a third of men. You know, society will keep trying to paint men as misogynistic, and so all this garbage terms they like to use to smear and paint guys with negatively whenever they talk about the current situation of the dating market and what the opposite sex is like with their high standards. But the evidence speaks for itself. Majority of men are going without. Tiny group of men are capitalizing on it and getting with practically everything, and it's becoming harder and harder, you know, for guys to be able to get with anybody. You know, this is just a handful of guys that I've known myself. Almost none of them have had success. You know, often if I've only known 20 people maybe, or something like that, I don't know, and a good chunk of them at least have been upwards of maybe even 3, 4, 5 to 10 years without anything, then I can pretty much say that I would bet that that's fucking common as hell, and that there's just so many guys going through this. Ain't got nothing to do with personality, man. A lot of these guys are decent people. Hell, I'm the only one out of the group who complains. I'm the only one out of the group who's bitter and misogynistic. All those words you can throw at me, I'll gladly take them. I'll wear them with like a badge. I don't care about who hates me for this stuff. I don't care who judges on me. I don't care how many officials come after me because of the things I talk online. They don't have anything on me. I haven't done anything. I just talk about things that they don't like. But that's just how it is. I don't care about being called all these things. I don't care about the threat of being cancelled. I don't care about being called any of the names that the leftists, whatever, see as a reason to try and shut people up, because I'm not worried if people think I'm an asshole or if people think I'm this or that or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I'm not out there to impress people like that. I'm not out there to appeal to the current agenda or society or any of that thing, or, you know, want to be on the positive end of any of this stuff, because I don't like the system or any of that stuff or how things are. I don't give a shit about my reputation. I don't care about who thinks what about me, because as far as I'm concerned, their opinions and them themselves and everybody, society, whatever, I don't value it. I don't care about any of that. I don't care about, you know, all these people who are just like this, running around like freaking ants. It has nothing to do with me, you know. So I don't care about talking about all this bullshit, but I know there are a lot of guys who aren't like that, and if they do think like this, they keep it to themselves. But there are a lot of guys out there in general, you know, who aren't bad people. You know, like I said, I'm probably like the worst out of the guys I know for this. I'm the only one who talks like this, but yet at the same time, they all struggle. They all have the same problems. It's not personality. You know, I'm just the one who lets it get to me. I'm the one who wants it enough that I complain because I'm frustrated. But they all go through it, pretty much. I mean, I've never known a tall, attractive guy, so for all I know, you know, like, I can't really speak for them. That's the kind of people that I think that are just having all the success, but all the guys I've known were pretty much just average or below. Some of them a little bit above that. None of them have had success. You know, it's a fucked up life, isn't it? One thing we're made for, pretty much. One thing we're made for, we can't really have. Like going back to that frickin' saying, you know, God put man on earth for 3 reasons. Unfortunately, for a lot of us, we can only hope to get 2 of them, which is eating and fighting. The other one is just reserved for a few f***y bastards. Anyway, I'm gonna probably go and watch some videos and wait to sort this stuff out tonight. And that was my vent for the day, or the week, or the month, or a year. I don't know. Anyway, hope your day's going better than mine. I haven't been doing much. As you can see, this place, I don't know if you can really see it, it is grim as hell, and the city looks incredibly dead like it normally does. It's a Saturday here, and my relative has gone out of town to pick up a car, and I'm supposed to be doing that tomorrow myself, or sometime soon. But this place is like a ghost town. Honestly, Chernobyl probably has more activity in it than this place. I have to get out of here, like, so badly. Have a good night, and I'll see you in the next video, or whatever, if I make another one. Goodbye.